My name is Cassandra Hayes. For as long as I can remember, I've been the one who faded into the background at every gathering. The daughter who smiled through mockery, who nodded through dismissal, who learned that silence was the price of keeping everyone comfortable, especially when nothing about it was fair. My sister Brooke used to say I made our family look ordinary, so I stayed ordinary for years. Out of love, out of habit, out of something that resembled obligation but felt more like slow erasure. But love shouldn't require you to disappear. And somewhere between her condescending laughter and my mother's apologetic shrugs, I realized I had vanished entirely, turned into living proof that everyone else's importance mattered more than mine. Tonight, as she leaned close and whispered, "Don't make me look bad, Cass," something inside me finally broke. Clean, quiet, irreversible. I'd spent my entire life keeping her image polished. She had no idea the foundation was already crumbling. So I smiled, raised my champagne glass, and made myself one promise. After tonight, my silence would never protect them again. Before I tell you what happened when her fiancé's father, a federal judge, called me by my actual title in front of everyone she was trying to impress, drop a comment below. Where are you right now? Sitting in your car? Lying in bed at 2 a.m.? Standing in your kitchen? I want to know you're out there because this story is for every person who's been made to feel small by the people who were supposed to see them. Charleston shimmered under golden evening light that night, the kind that makes everything look effortless, even the carefully constructed lies. The engagement party had already begun by the time I arrived. White magnolias everywhere. Crystal champagne flutes reflecting candlelight. A string quartet playing something elegant and forgettable. Laughter rolling through the air like expensive perfume, thick, cloying, performative. Brooke stood at the center of it all, luminous in ivory silk, her smile so bright it could burn through anyone foolish enough to look directly at her for too long. She saw me approaching, and her expression flickered, just for half a second, before the mask slid back into place. She leaned close, her breath sweet with champagne and entitlement. "Don't embarrass me tonight, Cass. His father's a federal judge." The words were soft, but they hit like a verdict I'd heard my entire life. I nodded once, my fingers tightening around the stem of my glass until it nearly cracked in my hand. Brooke's fiancé, Marcus Whitmore, introduced me to his family with a smile that looked rehearsed in a mirror. Polite, distant, dismissive. His father, Judge Andrew Whitmore, rose from his seat near the bar. Silver-haired, sharp-eyed, the kind of calm authority that comes from seeing too many truths revealed under oath. Our eyes met. Recognition flickered first in his, then in mine. "Good to see you again, Judge Hayes," he said clearly. Silence. Then the faint, delicate sound of glass shattering. Champagne spilled across white linen like a confession pooling on a courtroom floor. I set my glass down carefully and met his gaze. "It's good to see you too, Your Honor." Brooke's voice trembled somewhere behind me. "Judge, what?" But I didn't turn to look at her. 13 years of silence had just shattered, and I could feel it in the air. This wasn't a celebration anymore. It was a reckoning. The first thing I remember about growing up in Chapel Hill was the light, soft, forgiving, no matter how cruel the words that lived inside it. The backyard smelled of magnolia and fresh-cut grass. Brooke used to twirl beneath the trees like she was auditioning for an invisible audience. She was the star, everyone said so. My father, Richard, loved to narrate our differences like it was family legend. "Brooke was born to shine," he'd say proudly. "Cassandra's the steady one. She'll find something practical." My mother, Diane, always smiled and added her line to the story. "Every family needs both the brilliant and the dependable." I used to laugh along. Back then, before I realized dependable was just another word for forgettable. When I got accepted to Duke Law School on a full scholarship, Brooke tilted her head with that pitying smile she'd perfected before 20. "Law school, that's just paperwork in better suits, isn't it?" I said nothing. I'd already learned that silence was the only response that wouldn't be used against me later. Years later, Richmond became home. I worked late in windowless offices as an assistant federal prosecutor, surrounded by case files that smelled of toner ink and the weight of consequences. It was demanding, lonely, relentless, but honest. It gave me purpose in a world that had never expected me to have one. And then there was the ethics investigation, the case that still echoes. Judge Andrew Whitmore accused of accepting inappropriate favors he'd never taken. I found the missing financial record that cleared him. One document, one truth, everything changed. No one knew my name. I withdrew from the public acknowledgement, erased myself from the credits. He remembered. I forgot until Charleston reminded me. That night, after the dinner ended in whispers and sideways glances, I stood on the veranda overlooking the harbor. The sea wind brushed my face. Waves crashed against the shore like slow, inevitable applause. Somewhere in the noise, I heard her voice again, the one that had shaped every decision I'd ever made. Promise me you'll never do anything to embarrass this family. And there, under the same stars she used to perform beneath, I realized I'd kept that promise far too long. 2 weeks before the engagement party, life in Richmond moved with the kind of precision only federal law can teach. My days were built around hearings, depositions, motions, and silence. Then the email arrived. Subject line, R.E., engagement celebration Brooke and Marcus Whitmore. Just a line of text, but it felt heavier than any case file on my desk. I opened it. The photos were perfect. Brooke's life reborn in filtered sunlight. She'd become the queen of carefully curated appearances. Designer brunches, charity galas. Her Instagram feed a flawless mosaic of champagne toasts and borrowed luxury. Living my best life, she captioned each post. Blessed success beyond ordinary. Meanwhile, my world existed entirely off camera. No filtered light, no staged smiles, just verdicts and depositions. The quiet dignity of doing work that mattered without needing applause for it. One afternoon, my phone rang. Brooke's voice slid through the receiver, warm and sharp at once. Cass, you'll come to Charleston, right? Marcus's father is a federal judge, not some local magistrate. This matters for our family's reputation. Pause. And Cass, wear something nice. No courtroom blazers, please. I smiled to myself. Nice, in her language, always meant not me. A week later, I flew to Atlanta for a judicial ethics symposium. The air there was thick with humidity and the scent of too strong conference coffee. Judge Whitmore presided over a panel that afternoon. When I stepped to the microphone to present findings on prosecutorial standards, he looked up. Recognition softened his expression. After the session, he approached me in the hallway, his voice low enough that only I could hear. Truth always finds its way, Judge Hayes. It wasn't just a greeting. It was a warning. Later, on the flight to South Carolina, I watched the sunset bleed into the Atlantic from my window seat. My mother's voice echoed in my mind. We're so proud of Brooke. She's marrying into a family that actually matters. I laughed under my breath, bitter, quiet. I had spent years being invisible in the family that mattered least. But somehow, I knew this time would be different. Charleston gleamed under morning sun the day of the party. The venue sparkled like a staged photograph. White magnolias cascaded from every archway. Gold script spelled Brooke and Marcus across the entrance. I arrived early, rolling suitcase in hand, determined to blend into the background, to disturb nothing. Brooke appeared almost immediately, hair curled, champagne-colored dress perfectly tailored. She scanned me from head to toe, frowning. You didn't get your hair done. I'm fine. Fine isn't enough, Cass. There are senators coming. I smiled. You'll shine, you always do. She gripped my hand, her voice soft but cutting. Your family, but this isn't your crowd. Stay quiet. The words sounded too much like our mothers. When my parents arrived, dressed too formally for their own comfort, my father grinned. Brooke's finally marrying into a real family. What makes a family real, Dad? He looked away. My mother jumped in. We're just so proud of her. You understand that, don't you, Cass? I've spent my life understanding, I said. They didn't hear the fracture beneath the words. At check-in, I saw my name tag. Cassandra Hayes, legal administrator. My chest tightened. Later, when I found Brooke in the bridal suite, she shrugged. Simpler this way. I swallowed the truth. Simpler was her word for dishonest. That afternoon, I overheard Judge Whitmore on a phone call near the courtyard. Yes, I know her, far better than they realize. His tones settled like distant thunder I couldn't yet see. That evening, I dressed in navy, classic, understated. My mother sighed, wear something brighter. I'm not here to be decoration. Then why come? I met her eyes through the mirror. Maybe that's the question everyone should be asking themselves. The ballroom at night shimmered with orchestrated perfection. Chandeliers dripped light across white orchids and polished marble. The quartet played something soft and meaningless. Laughter floated through the air like champagne bubbles, light, hollow, performative. I sat exactly where Brooke had placed me, near the door, far from her spotlight, close to the exit. She glowed in the center of the room, her ivory